Fantasy football playoffs are here, which means the fantasy football championship is around the corner. We want you to be a part of that game. And to do that, I have a bunch of players here in this episode that I really need you to know about, because you either need to get them on your roster or you need to get them in your starting lineup. Let's just get to these players right now. What up and welcome to Rival Fantasy Week 16 Playoff Risers Edition. I'm Neil Maligno. The goal of this episode is to talk about the players whose fantasy football stock is on the rise. The players discussed in this episode may be good targets for you to trade if your trades are still open in your league, waiver wire ads, must starts, and more. Now, I keep these episodes quick hitting. If you do want longer, more interactive content where you can ask questions and talk with us, subscribe to the channel, join our weekly live episode, including our Sunday Start Sit Advice live stream that kicks off at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday. Drop your questions in the comments. We leave no question unanswered here at Rival Fantasy. Now let's get to the players. Brock Purdy was the QB4 in week 15 and has now finished top 10 at quarterback in 5 of the last 6 weeks. The reason he's a riser is due to the fact that he certified himself as a top 10 quarterback rest of season, and no longer just this quarterback that you could stream versus a good matchup. There's now only 3 to 5 quarterbacks you consider starting over Purdy in the playoffs, as he's elevated his game and he has a ridiculous arsenal at his disposal. Nick Mullens is now the Vikings starting quarterback ahead of both Joshua Dobbs and Jaren Hall, who have all played since the loss of Kirk Cousins. In his first start for the Vikings, he threw for 300 plus yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, which isn't a monster game, but it did land him as a QB 11 in week 5. Rest of season, he has the Lions, Packers, and Lions again. So Mullens is a solid option at quarterback for those in 2 QB/Superflex leagues or for anyone streaming quarterbacks in the playoffs. Chandler was a top 5 running back in week 15, starting in place of Alexander Mattison, who was out with injury. Chandler had 157 total yards and a touchdown, finishing with almost 25 fantasy points. Now, I'm not a big Mattison fan, but I also don't wish injuries on a player. I do love it, though, when a guy like Chandler gets all the work out of the Vikings backfield. Head coach O'Connell says that Chandler will have a featured role in the offense, so even if Mattison returns, I believe the Vikings are starting to come around on the fact that Chandler is just the better running back. Devin Singletary has officially forced the Texans to bench Dameon Pierce, now getting all the workload out of the backfield. The last 2 weeks, Pierce had 5 carries and 1 target, while Singletary had 39 carries and 8 targets, making him the Texans running back to start. Not that I'm happy for Pierce's struggles, but I did call it before the season that Singletary was going to be a factor more than people thought, and that Pierce was going to struggle. Texans don't have a cakewalk schedule rest of the season, but Singletary is a good flex option rest of the way. Rashee Rice has broken into the top 25 at wide receiver, where he joins fellow rookie Puka Nacua and Jordan Addison. Rice has caught 32 receptions for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns in his last 4 games, making him the number 4 wide receiver in fantasy football during that time. He's the number 1 wide receiver in the Chiefs offense, an offense that's powered by Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and he's a must-start player moving forward. Higgins found his way back into the top 10 in week 15 thanks to 4 receptions for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. The loss of Joe Burrow was expected to stall out this Bengals offense, but Jake Browning has done a great job filling in for him since the injury. It's great news that Higgins is back healthy and producing, but now Chase is a little banged up, and if he can't go, Higgins will get even more attention from the quarterback, potentially even increasing that workload. Darren Waller got hurt in week 8 and hadn't played since. Then he returned in week 15 and caught 4 passes for 40 yards. Nothing earth-shattering, but a healthy Darren Waller matters at the right time for the fantasy playoffs. Waller has better upside than most of the tight ends that we've been forced to stream when you don't already have one of the top options at the position. Tommy DeVito will quickly find out how good Waller is and make him his favorite pass catcher in this offense. Tucker Kraft has been trending up ever since the Packers lost rookie tight end Luke Musgrave. Kraft finished as the number 6 tight end in week 15 with 4 receptions, 57 yards, and a touchdown. The Packers' offensive weapons are all kinds of beat up, so Kraft is being depended on to put up points, scoring 2 touchdowns in the last 4 games. Playing the Panthers in week 16 is lining up Kraft as a solid streaming option at tight end or a perfect tight end in 2 tight end leagues. Tre Tucker was wide receiver 15 last week after catching 3 passes for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns, yet I still don't expect this to move the needle for many in fantasy. The Raiders have a rookie at quarterback in Aiden O'Connell, 3 vet wide receivers in Adams, Myers, and Renfro, rookie tight end Michael Mayer, and of course Josh Jacobs at the running back position. All of that is exactly why Tucker will go ignored, but I don't believe he should. If you're in a deep league and you need someone to stream, Tucker is the fastest guy in the Raiders offense. He has good chemistry with O'Connell and is worthy of a deep flex start. If you want more fantasy advice from Rival Fantasy Sports, subscribe to this channel, hit like on this video, subscribe to it, help us with the algorithm, follow us on social at Rival Fantasy on TikTok, Instagram, and X, and of course, go to rivalfantasy.com, download the app, and have fun today. Good luck in the playoffs, and I'll see you in the championship.